Imagine an entire global superpower simply vanishing overnight, leaving behind the world's oldest and largest unsolved cold case. This civilization commanded staggering wealth. Their massive naval fleets dominated the seas, returning to bustling cities anchored by towering, sunlit temples built of solid gold. To understand their engineering scale, look at this layout. They built a central island isolated by alternating rings of land and deep water. By cutting massive canals through these circular defenses, they created a perfectly guarded harbor, allowing warships to flow to the open ocean. Then, disaster struck. In a single, violent span of 24 hours, a relentless sequence of earthquakes and extreme flooding swallowed the entire island. How does an empire with that level of massive engineering and global reach disappear without leaving a single stone, artifact, or shipwreck behind to prove it ever existed? Every detail we know about Atlantis traces back to a single witness, the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, who wrote the account roughly 2,300 years ago. But Plato wasn't writing a contemporary news report. He was detailing an empire he claimed had already been dead for thousands of years before he was even born. He described the Atlanteans as brilliant innovators who eventually lost their way. As their military and economic strength grew, their leaders became arrogant and consumed by greed. Because his writings are the only source material, investigators are stuck answering one difficult question. Was Plato acting as a historian recording an actual ancient tragedy, or a philosopher inventing a fable to make a point? Taking Plato at his word, explorers, marine biologists, and treasure hunters have scoured the globe, launching countless deep-sea expeditions to find the sunken ruins. Many researchers concentrate their sonar near Greece and the Mediterranean Sea, assuming the city sank close to Plato's own home. Others look westward to the crystal blue shallows of the Caribbean, searching for submerged rock formations that look like artificial walls. There is even an extreme geographical theory arguing that sudden crustal displacement dragged the entire continent of Atlantis south, freezing it beneath the ice of Antarctica. Yet, despite mapping millions of square miles of ocean floor, no one has produced a single definitive artifact. We might be failing to find the city because we are looking for the wrong kind of evidence. Modern geologists and historians have formed a different consensus. They suggest Plato's story is a slightly exaggerated retelling of a real documented civilization that suffered an identical fate. Thousands of years ago, the Minoans built an incredibly advanced maritime empire on the islands just south of Greece, complete with sprawling palaces and complex plumbing. Then, around 1600 BCE, the volcanic island of Thera violently exploded. The eruption shattered the island and sent towering tsunamis racing across the sea, instantly wiping the Minoan fleet off the map. Look at the geological record right next to Plato's text. A highly advanced naval power, located near Greece, destroyed suddenly by earthquakes and massive waves. The details align almost perfectly. Science has essentially found the murder weapon in the form of a volcanic tsunami. But rocks and waves don't explain the psychological motive behind the story Plato chose to tell. Reading the original text carefully reveals the dark turn in Atlantis' history. As their vaults filled with gold, the leaders became consumed by unchecked ambition. They weaponized their engineering brilliance to expand their empire by force, completely abandoning the civic values and moral compass that originally built their society. Plato frames the catastrophic flood as a deliberate cosmic punishment. In his account, the gods witnessed a civilization rotting from the inside and chose to violently clear the board. Human hubris acted as the primary architect of their destruction. The society collapsed under the weight of its own internal rot well before the first wave reached the shore. Which brings us to the present day. When we look at our own global civilization, it is difficult not to wonder if we are walking down the exact same path. We have engineered a world of immense power, wrapping the globe in fiber optic cables and building glass towers that reach straight into the clouds. Yet, we are paying an extraordinary environmental and moral cost for this unchecked industrial growth, prioritizing constant expansion over the stability of our own ecosystem. Plato never wanted us to scan the ocean floor with submarines. He built Atlantis as a psychological mirror, perfectly angled to reflect the pride and greed of whatever generation looks into it. The legend remains immortal because the fatal flaw that sank the city still lives inside us today, waiting patiently for history to repeat itself.